Michael, great to talk. Let's talk about Macron's diplomatic mission firstly. Mixed reports about exactly what was accomplished. What's your take?
Good to be with you, Bev. Well, I don't think Macron exited Moscow with much. He came here to Kiev yesterday, as you know, and could not offer the Ukrainians much assurances that the Russians will not invade. In fact, the Kremlin quickly threw cold water on his statements that they're not going to invade. So, look, this shuttle diplomacy is very good. We've had a number of world leaders come through here. I believe the German leader is coming later in the week. But I think there's a growing sense here that Putin is going to do what Putin wants, and that whatever diplomacy is going on may delay any sort of Russian action, but it's not going to bring a halt to it. I think, like I've said many times, whenever you march all of your troops up the hill, it's very, very difficult to call them back to barracks without losing any face.
Indeed, and not only has he marched a number, we see further resources, equipment and forces gathering and new military exercises. So it's not, can't be easing tension for the people in Kiev and Ukraine.
Indeed, I think the latest number by the Ukrainian defense minister is about 140,000 Russian troops on Ukraine's borders. So what Ukraine really needs right now, they say, is better eyes in the sky, you know, that AWACS US airplane technology to be able to see what Russian troop movements are. But I can tell you by being here a few days already, I mean, there's a growing sense of unease or anxiety, if you will. Those who can afford it or those who can work remotely are going to outlying areas of Ukraine. But most people have to stay here. Got to be completely honest with you, as always, though. I think that people feel, including myself, feel the biggest threat right now is the new COVID-19 wave. It seems to have sickened almost every second person here. It's slowed down the economy. Families are struggling. It's the worst possible time for, of course, Ukraine to be distracted by something like that right now.
That's fascinating, Michael. Not much has been discussed about that, they are struggling so severely with that. Look, let's talk too about this new alliance between China and Russia, something that you've looked at quite a lot. What support can Russia really expect from China, do you think?
Sure. Well, this tightening embrace between Russia and China, which we kind of saw at the Beijing Olympics, has been going on for quite some time. I think one of the last times we spoke, we talked about how even during the COVID-19 lockdowns, there was a lot of traffic, diplomatic traffic between China and Russia when nobody else was traveling. So their talks, their coordination on foreign policy was not stopped by the pandemic. But I think from what's very interesting here is Xi Jinping is looking very carefully in terms of what Putin can get away with. The Putin kind of playbook is to put that knife in, probe for deep tissue, see how far you can get, because Xi Jinping needs signals as well as what the U.S. stance will be if and when they do that land grab for Taiwan or for more areas of the South China Sea. So whatever's happening now is very, very instructive for Beijing.
That's fascinating. So it's almost a litmus test of just how involved the U.S. is going to become.
Absolutely. And although this crisis has distracted the Biden administration from their so-called pivot to Indo-Pacific, I see Secretary Blinken is in your neck of the woods at the moment. So they haven't totally lost their eyesight on that pivot, but it certainly has distracted them. And I think this is something what China wants as well, is to be able to pretty much have a free hand over their sphere of influence. That statement that Putin and Xi Jinping made at the Beijing Olympics was absolutely mind-boggling, is that they expect pretty much free reign over their respective spheres of influence. That goes to show you. And one more quick thing, Bev. Last week at the UN Security Council, we saw Gabon, Kenya, and India abstain from that procedural vote. Why did Gabon and Kenya abstain? It's because they both received either Chinese or Russian vaccines. So now you see the two also coordinating on the so-called vaccine diplomacy.
And you also see how, you know, China will tighten the screws with the substantial funding that they have given to many parts of the world, and that's going to make it difficult for countries to stand against them. What would the US be making of that extraordinary statement, as you pointed out, and how they're going to manage all of this?
It's very difficult for them to manage. I mean, they also have certain domestic concerns in the U.S. right now, including COVID. But I think at the end of the day, the U.S. has been aware for quite some time. It China's nefarious activities, if we can put it that way. They've been working behind the scenes to disrupt elections as well. But more and more, I think there's a growing realization in the corridors of power is that China and Russia are increasingly playing by the same playbook, extorting countries who have dared to sign up on the Belt and Road Initiative or dared to take vaccines for free at a discounted price. So it's a very difficult time. And in fact, Ukraine itself has also been a victim. A few months ago, the Chinese threatened to withhold vaccines from Ukraine if it didn't remove its name from a UN list of names criticizing China's treatment of Muslim minorities in China. So there you go, that's the way they operate.
How much do these men have a bond in terms of how they want their nations to be seen?
Oh, hugely similar. They're both legacy builders. They're both men who want to stay in power forever. They're both men who have no qualms about crushing democracy, about throttling social media, throwing opponents behind bars. And it's very, very difficult. We must remember our quarrel right now isn't with the Chinese or Russian people, but it must be very difficult on their citizens not to be able to speak out like we can here in Ukraine or elsewhere. So increasingly, I can't overstate it, they're playing very much more by the similar playbooks.
Yeah. Michael, always lovely to talk. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.